Part 23. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 222. Have you obtained the inheritance from Wuxing Mountain? The brilliance slowly faded away, but when Nai-Chen fell to the ground, the old man He Wenquan who presided over the alchemy conference stepped forward in surprise. No, you must have obtained the inheritance. I saw with my own eyes that flames that could burn the world emerged from Wuxing Mountain and entered your body. You can actually bear such a terrifying inheritance. Brother Nai-Chen, can you tell me what exactly is the inheritance you have received? He Wenquan's eyes were filled with longing. The pursuit of the end of the alchemy path is what he has always been pursuing. This is kept secret. Nai-Chen smiled slightly and shook his head. He has presided over the alchemy conference for hundreds of years and accepted the important responsibilities left by countless predecessors. Now that he doesn't even know what the real inheritance is, He Wenquan inevitably feels a little blocked in his heart. Just then, with a plop, he suddenly fell to his knees. I will no longer ask about inheritance, but can you please ask Brother Nai-Chen to agree to the long-cherished wish of Lao Chen and countless others and serve as the leader of the Alchemy Alliance? Nai-Chen was slightly startled and looked in front of him. But he found that He Wenquan was already kneeling on one knee, and with extremely respectful hands, he presented a token composed of red and golden colors engraved with the pattern of the alchemy furnace. A curtain of light blocked everything behind him, and beside He Wenquan were several of the most important figures in the alchemy conference. Each of them has at least the strength of a 6th-grade alchemist. The intention of alchemy has been declining for an unknown period of time. Over the years, no one has been able to reach the 8th level of alchemy master, and no one can obtain the inheritance through Wuxing Mountain. I have been waiting for hundreds of years, and my predecessors have been waiting for thousands of years. I never thought that in my lifetime, I would one day be able to see someone break through the trials of Wuxing Mountain with my own eyes. Brother Nai-Chen, I have no other pleas except that I hope you can accept the position of leader. Even if you do nothing, I believe that even your words and deeds can be enough to guide countless alchemists in Lanchuan continent on the road to rise. If you can agree, thousands of alchemists in Lanchuan continent are willing to go through fire and water for you. I only hope that Brother Nai-Chen can agree to this stubborn request and take over the position of leader. As he spoke, He Wenquan's voice trembled slightly, and the pleading and sincerity in his eyes could not be faked at all. The token representing the Alchemy Alliance leader at the foot of Wuxing Mountain reflected bursts of light. In that case, I have no reason to refuse. Nai-Chen only thought for a moment and actually took the token without hesitation. Leader Nai. He Wenquan raised his head, obviously not expecting this moment to come so suddenly. The old muddy eyes were full of tears, and the excitement was beyond words. I would like to congratulate Wenquan, the host of the alchemy conference for hundreds of years, and welcome the leader. He Wenquan clasped his hands in his fists, knelt on one knee, lowered his head heavily, and his voice was shaking with excitement. Welcome to the Alliance leader. Several old men behind him also knelt down on one knee at the same time, and endless waves seemed to surge in everyone's heart. After being immersed in alchemy for so many years, they have waited for too long. And today, the person who may be able to save the entire Danghuan continent finally appears. This kind of excitement cannot be expressed clearly in words. In this case, I will pass on the recipe of Jinyang burning tendon pill as a gift to all the alchemists in Lanchuan continent. You should also get up. Nai-Chen put away the token and nodded slightly. Thank you, leader. He Wenquan once again bowed his hands with great respect, and then led the others to stand up slowly. The light curtain behind them gradually dissipated, and the people behind finally saw Nai-Chen, He Wenquan and others hidden in it. Congratulations. Wenquan did not say much about the alliance leader, but respectfully asked for instructions. Every year at this time, Monks from all over the world gather here to auction the elixirs refined by the Alchemy Conference. Are you interested in auctioning the 7-color elixir? Nai-Chen shook his head. That one won't work, but these 6 ambergris can be put up for auction. Yes. He Wenquan took the ambergris pill respectfully and formally announced it to the public. These 6 ambergris pills are all of the 7th grade, the highest grade. As people from all over the world, the monks from all over the world are very confident in bidding for them. As soon as the statement came out, it instantly caused a burst of excitement. I will give you 7,000 spirit stones. That's a 7th grade ambergris pill. How dare you tell me the price for 7,000 spiritual stones? I'll give you 9,000 spiritual stones. 9,900 spiritual stones. Not only were the crowds completely immersed in the excitement, but there were also figures flying towards Wuhang Mountain in the distance. At this time in the past, a large number of monks would indeed come to Wuhang Mountain to auction the elixirs refined by the most powerful alchemists. But it is completely incomparable to today's grand occasion. The vision of heaven and earth that the 8th grade spiritual elixir was born just now has attracted the attention of countless people. Within 1,000 miles, all the sects who witnessed the scene or felt the aura immediately sent their masters to come here. The foot of Wuxing Mountain is already crowded with people and noisy, but there are still a large number of monks heading here. 10,000 spirit stones. 13,000 spirit stones. Even though they had not seen the legendary 8th grade elixir, the attraction of the 7th grade ambergris elixir had already reached a terrifying level. Except for those handed down from ancient times, there were few people in the world who could refine elixirs of this grade. 20,000 spiritual stones. At this moment, a voice overwhelmed the momentum of the whole venue. Everyone looked at the voice and was instantly shocked. The person who said this was actually the Eastern Saint Emperor Duan Muhong. The Eastern Saint Emperor actually came here to auction the elixir in person. 30,000 spiritual stones. No one spoke. The Eastern Saint Emperor suddenly stretched out 3 fingers and scanned the 4 directions. 30,000 spiritual stones. Is there anyone else planning to continue? Accompanied by that sharp gaze, there was silence for a while, and no one spoke again. Not bad, it seems that this person is still richer. Standing next to Nai-Chen, Aolan nodded with satisfaction. He looks like a sucker, but why do I always feel that this guy's aura is familiar? Nai-Chen frowned slightly. Hey, who cares, as long as there is money, it's fine. Aolan said excitedly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 20,000 spirit stones are a lot of small money. Nai-Chen. 30,000 spirit stones once, 30,000 spirit stones twice. 6 7th grade ambergris pills were successfully bought by the Eastern Saint Emperor. At the same time, the auction was settled. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mo Zuzi. Chapter 223. Nai-Chen, Tianyun Hall. No matter how amazing this name was before, it could not match the terrifying reputation of the 8th grade alchemist. The 8th grade alchemist is an existence that has not appeared for a long time. No one could have thought that Nai-Chen could actually refine an 8th grade elixir by himself. It's a pity that they didn't see the elixir that caused the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth, and even the dragon yin pill was auctioned off by the Eastern Saint Emperor. In desperation, the many cultivators who heard the news could only try to auction off the elixirs of other cultivators as much as possible, which was barely considered as some consolation. Unlike previous years, He Wenquan seemed to have something to hide at this year's alchemy conference. After everyone bid on most of the elixirs, he announced that this year's alchemy conference was over and dismissed everyone who came from all over the world. As for whether Nai-Chen had obtained the inheritance of Wuxing Mountain and what happened before, no one knew. After many cultivators and alchemists left, the area around Wuxing Mountain was obviously much quieter. This is the recipe for Jinyang Fenjin pills. You can make it public at the right time. However, Jinyang Fenjin pills are a 7th grade pill. Whether someone can successfully refine it depends on their own strength. Nai Chen handed a golden pill recipe to He Wenquan. Thank you, Alliance Master. Even though his identity and status are extremely respected, his hair and beard have already turned white. In front of Nai Chen, He Wenquan behaved respectfully. The alchemy conference is over. What are you going to do next? Go back and digest the food in my stomach first. Nai Chen pressed his slightly swollen stomach. You really got the inheritance. He Wenquan couldn't hide his astonishment, but soon, he stopped talking. Thank you for the recipe, Alliance Master. We will always be waiting for you to come to Wuxing Mountain. No matter what happens, all the alchemists in the world are willing to go through fire and water for you. Leading the other old men, He Wenquan bowed his head. Yes, I'm optimistic about you. Nai Chen smiled and patted He Wenquan's shoulder, then turned around in front of the elders and flew away. The majestic Wuxing Mountain stood behind him, and the light on the mountain finally slowly dissipated. However, the faint majesty seemed to have a substantial connection with Nai Chen. Standing at the foot of the mountain, He Wenquan and several elders stood solemnly, without saying a word, just looking solemnly at the figure that was going away. He, others can't see it, but I know that you swallowed the treasure in Wuxing Mountain. Nai Chen finally didn't treat himself as a coolie. Aolan smiled playfully beside Nai Chen. Oh? You can feel it, it seems that your bloodline has indeed improved a lot. Nai Chen smiled with a little curiosity. After all, the breath of the Tianling Bian fire was extremely secretive and weak, and after being swallowed into his stomach, it almost disappeared completely. Of course, after all, I have eaten so many dragon blood carps, and my strength has improved a lot. Now I have reached the middle stage of Xianyuan realm, maybe there will be a chance to be promoted soon. Aolan raised his head playfully, and a smug smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. So, you may really have a chance to reach the Bahai realm within a year. Nai Chen thought for a moment and suddenly said. Of course. When I reach the Bahai realm in a year, will I still worry about not being able to beat you? And a year later. As he spoke, Ao Ian's expression suddenly changed slightly. As if he thought of something, there was a touch of sadness on his face that he had never had before. What's wrong? Will you miss me after a year if I don't treat you as a pet? Nai Chen smiled. How is that possible? Aolan immediately refuted, but he was like a frightened little rabbit who was exposed for lying, and he was obviously flustered. You're kidding, it's impossible. If it weren't your pet, I, as a dignified dragon king, wouldn't go looking for you every day. Humph, even if there was a golden carp, it wouldn't work. Your tail is exposed. Just as Aolan was speaking with great confidence, Nai Chen suddenly pulled her tail that had appeared out of nowhere. Ah! When her tail was suddenly pulled, Ao Ian's body trembled and she quickly put it away. Nai Chen couldn't help but laugh at this scene. After all, he had noticed more than once that whenever Aolan lied or felt guilty, she would involuntarily conjure up a tail and shake it at a high frequency behind her. And it would shake faster and faster as she felt guilty. I'm afraid that throughout the history of the entire Lanchuan continent, there is no dragon king who is so hypocritical and can't hide his lies. Ao Ian's little thoughts are really too easy to guess. But Nai Chen looked into the distance, with a hint of awe in his eyes. Use the heaven and earth as a furnace, and all living beings as materials. The inheritance of the heavenly spirit jade flame is more powerful than he imagined. It may take at least a lot of time to completely consume and refine it. But before that, just in the alchemy conference just now, Nai Chen could clearly feel several unfriendly auras. And in that aura, there was a smell that he was very familiar with. It seems that they are indeed planning to take action. Nai Chen's originally peaceful eyes, even with a bit of a smile, suddenly flashed with a cold and sharp look, and he picked up Ao Ian's collar and walked away into the distance. At this moment, in the east of Wuxing Mountain, several figures suddenly appeared in front of Dongji Holy Emperor Duan Muhong, who was returning in mid-air, blocking his way. There were 6 people in total, all dressed in black robes. There was a cold murderous intention hidden in the robes that made a hunting noise. 1 person is in the sea opening realm, and 5 are in the Xianyuan realm. Ho ho, it's really a big battle. Tell me, what do you want to do when you come to me? Duan Muhong looked at several people. But the figures in black robes didn't make any sound, but the cold murderous intent that they faintly exuded was even more terrifying. The battle is not small, but do you think that just these few people can stop me? It seems that my strength has indeed been underestimated. Duan Muhong's expression finally showed some anger, and the aura of the Holy Emperor emanated from his body unabashedly. But the figures did not retreat under this powerful aura. The hurricane swept past, and the black robes fluttered in the wind. Under the hidden shadow, Duan Muyang finally saw clearly the face under the black robe. The eyes and faces of these 6 people were all covered with blood lines. Moreover, the blood lines exuded an extremely cold aura, as if filled with endless will to die. The strange and unpredictable feeling actually made him feel a little afraid. What happened to these people? At this moment, even Duan Muhong's face looked a bit apprehensive. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 224. You want the elixir in my hand. Seeing the action of the man in black robe, Duan Muhong sneered. Humph, you think I will hand over the treasure in my hand? You look down on me, a saint emperor, too much. I want to see what ability you have to take things from me. The moment he finished speaking, 6 black shadows moved at the same time without saying anything. The blood color filled the air, and the killing intent swept towards Duan Muhong. A silver spear appeared in Duan Muhong's hand. He stood with the spear, with great momentum. Walk on the sea. Duan Muhong shouted loudly, and the spear swept away. The realm of the sea is as vast as the sea. Like a surging river, rushing and rushing, the surging spiritual energy rushed to all directions. Even among the saint emperors, Duan Muhong's strength is enough to rank at the top. However, daggers were thrust out from the 6 black robes at the same time. The same blood-colored lines permeated every dagger. Facing the surging spiritual energy, the dagger seemed to be able to cut through the river of heaven. Under the cold blood blade, everything would be completely divided. How is it possible? Duan Muhong's pupils shrank sharply, and he was completely shocked by the scene in front of him. If the figure who had barely reached the Pi High realm could block this attack, it would be fine. The others were only in the Xianyuan realm, how could they easily cut off his attack? What secrets were hidden in them? But before Duan Muhong could figure out the cause and effect, several black robes had already attacked at the same time. The blood-colored sharp blade slashed, and in an instant, Duan Muhong's ears seemed to echo the painful wails of countless evil spirits. The voice was extremely miserable, like a bewitching voice, constantly shaking his heartstrings. Open. Duan Muhong raised his spear, and the majestic spiritual power vibrated around, finally bouncing the blood blade away. However, although he blocked the attack, he found that he was already sweating profusely. The secrets hidden in these people were too weird. No. At this moment, Duan Muhong suddenly realized that something was wrong. He suddenly realized that he had been surrounded by 6 people since he didn't know when. 6 black-robed figures were distributed in 6 corners, and they exuded extremely strange auras. And they kept spinning and circling around him as the center of the circle. Duan Muhong hurriedly looked around, but his pupils suddenly shrank. He clearly saw that there were faint blood-colored lines floating in the air around him. Those blood threads permeated the entire space around him, and the strange aura they exuded was exactly the same as that of several people. He had fallen into a trap long before he knew when. Duan Mu Yang Gang was about to make a move, but suddenly, the space was distorted and vibrated. Those diffused silk threads seemed to be connected, and at the same time, the blood light was strong, and countless blood-colored auras spread in all directions. A barrier completely enveloped him, and countless cries that seemed to come from the abyss sounded at this moment. One after another, and it made people feel cold in their hearts. How high follows the order, 3,000 silver spears. Duan Muhong no longer dared to slack off, and could only try his best to struggle with everything as a bet. Without leaving any spare strength, countless silver spear phantoms emerged at this moment, as if they turned into huge waves and rushed into the sky. However, the cries of thousands of evil spirits seemed to be able to penetrate the soul. Countless wailing blood-colored phantoms rushed down in pain. Boom! In the blood-colored diffusion, countless silver spear phantoms collided with the seemingly endless blood-colored. But seemingly able to barely resist this distorted space, Duan Muhong was constantly retreating step by step. The strong muscles on his shoulders were obviously trembling slightly, and a trickle of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Duan Muhong's breath began to become increasingly disordered and weak, and he was obviously completely at a disadvantage. Moreover, the strange blood color was constantly attacking him. The blood color that came through the gap between the spears, as long as it touched Duan Muhong's skin, would devour his skin and flesh like dead wood. Pain came one after another, and more importantly, the strange breath was constantly attacking his mind. Oops! Even if he gritted his teeth and endured it, Duan Muhong clearly felt that the situation was not good. If this continued, he might really die here. And there was a way to escape. Duan Muhong tried every possible way, but he could not find a way to escape from this blood formation. The situation was getting worse, I'm afraid. Just when Duan Muhong's heart sank, a childish dragon roar sounded from the horizon. What's that sound? Is it a dragon? Duan Muhong was obviously stunned for a moment, and the 6 black-robed figures who were trying to strangle him were also obviously distracted. At this moment, a golden giant covered with extremely bright light suddenly appeared in the sky. On the golden giant's arm, there were lines as bright as magma. It seemed to come from ancient times, mysterious. The golden giant suddenly slapped down with a palm, wrapped in an overwhelming hurricane, roaring and surging. The 6 black-robed figures suddenly stagnated, and clearly felt the terrifying power contained in it. They had to give up Duan Muhong and hurriedly wanted to escape to a distance. But it was too late. In a blink of an eye, the 3 people were completely crushed under this palm, and in an instant, there was no flesh and blood left. Before the other 3 people could escape to the distance, they suddenly found a figure blocking them. Nai Chen walked with a sword in his hand, his eyes stern. Kill him! A withered and trembling voice came from the black robe, and the blood-red blade was exposed in the air. The 3 people flew towards Nai Chen at the same time regardless of everything. But Nai Chen just stood there, as if he was an insurmountable mountain and sea barrier, and he could not be shaken at all. With a sword, a black-robed figure was cut in half, and the broken body fell from the air. You want to attack me with only this little trick? Nai Chen's figure flashed, and his tone was extremely cold. Another person who had reached the Xianyuan realm had no chance to resist, and he was annihilated into dust in an instant without even being able to pull out the dagger. Blood-colored lines suddenly spread all over the body of the last person, and his body suddenly swelled, and countless soft and mixed spiritual energy gathered in it, obviously wanting to self-destruct. But Nai Chen suddenly stretched out his hand at this time and directly strangled his throat. Boom! A loud explosion sounded, and the man's body was shattered in the terrifying aftermath. The strange blood color spread all around, but he suddenly realized that his soul had been firmly grasped by Nai Chen. Let alone breaking free, even self-destruction was completely impossible. All of his thoughts had already been seen through by the man in front of him. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 225. Swinging his silver spear violently, Duan Muhong used all his strength to barely break up the blood-colored formation. But feeling the corrosion of his body, he still felt a little scared. If Nai Chen had been a step slower, he would have died here, his body eaten by the blood-colored formation and turned into nutrients. Thank you for saving me, brother. Although he was a saint emperor and was saved by Nai Chen, Duan Mu Yang did not put on airs at all. He flew to Nai Chen and bowed with gratitude. It doesn't matter. I have already felt the strange aura on them. Even if I don't take action now, these guys will come to me in a while. Nai Chen waved his hand and replied. Tianyun Hall, Nai Chen. Duan Muhong stood solemnly. He had heard that his great-grandson worshipped under Tianyun Hall and seemed to have mentioned Nai Chen in the family. But he did not expect that he would be saved by Nai Chen at this time. When we go back, we must find Duan Mu Yang and let him respect Nai Chen from now on. After taking a look at Duan Muhong, Nai Chen had a good impression of him. After all, Duan Muhong looked like a young man in his early 20s, handsome and elegant, wearing a phosphorescent battle robe and holding a silver spear. At first glance, he could make a good impression. But now, there is something more important. Nai Chen frowned slightly. He had felt several strange auras during the Dan Dao conference. Unexpectedly, these auras were indeed related to the dragon blood formation. What is their purpose here? A huge spiritual power instantly swept across the soul captured by Nai Chen. Nai Chen showed no mercy. The soul-searching technique directly destroyed the entire soul and captured his memory. Scenes emerged one after another, and all the memories of the soul before his death were explored without reservation. After a moment, Nai Chen opened his eyes and his face changed slightly. Brother Nai Chen, what happened? Seeing that the situation seemed a little wrong, Duan Muhong asked hurriedly. It seems to be starting. Nai Chen's eyes were slightly stern. What is starting? Because Nai Chen showed such an expression, Duan Mu Yang quickly realized that the matter must be serious. Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin will probably attack Tianyun Palace soon. Nai Chen said a few words slowly. He clearly saw in his soul that the two emperors were slowly gathering people. And in the Fiyu Holy Land, the dragon blood formation was almost completely condensed. Not only that, through the last remaining consciousness of his soul, he saw a dark and deep canyon. It seemed that there was an extremely terrifying thing hidden in that canyon. Even though there was no direct contact at all, Nai Chen felt a sense of fear. What is hidden there? No wonder, even though the strength of Tianyun Palace today is far from what it was before, Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin can be so fearless. They may still have undetectable means in their hands. Nai Chen's face showed a trace of solemnity. He said goodbye to Duan Muhong and immediately set off to return to Tianyun Palace. Brother Nai Chen, since you saved my life, the kingdom of Dongji is willing to help Empress Qingyu and Tianyun Palace. Facing Nai Chen's figure going away, Duan Muhong bowed his head solemnly with a serious face. Since this war is inevitable, he believes that Tianyun Palace will definitely not lose. Tianyun Palace. Affected by the 7th grade elixir refined by Nai Chen, most of the disciples felt the obvious changes in their bodies. Countless disciples were excited and came to the outside of the hall. Many people sat cross-legged in front of the statue of the Empress, bathing in the pure spiritual energy of Tianyun Palace, and practicing with the remaining elixir fragrance in the air. There were also disciples who were discussing the grade and effect of the pills that Nai Chen had refined with great interest. The atmosphere in the entire Tianyun Hall was relatively relaxed, and many disciples were obviously in a good mood, without any sense of crisis. But at this moment, Nai Chen's figure floated down from the sky. "Brother Nai, you are back so soon." Many disciples gathered around, but before they could thank Nai Chen for the pills he had refined, which had greatly improved them, they found that Nai Chen seemed a little different today. On weekdays, no matter what happened, Brother Nai was indifferent. This serious and solemn look was the first time they had seen it. "Nai Chen, what happened? Could it be related to the sign of the 8th grade pill that caused the strange phenomenon of heaven and earth?" Elder Wang, who did not know the truth, hurriedly stepped forward and asked. Nai Chen shook his head and went directly into the Tianyun Hall. "Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin may be ready to take action." When Nai Chen told Chu Qingyu about this, a colder look appeared on Chu Qingyu's face, which was always cold. The power of the emperor spread invisibly to the surroundings, and the aura exuded by Chu Qingyu changed suddenly, and she was majestic without anger. Compared to the shy feeling of blushing on a date, Chu Qingyu's awe-inspiring power at this moment was far beyond the reach of other emperors. "But with you, my wife, I have nothing to fear." Nai Chen smiled calmly. Among that soul, except for Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin, who had already prepared everything and summoned countless powerful monks to prepare to attack Tianyun Palace. He also saw a memory about the canyon. The dragon blood formation, which Emperor Fiyu devoted all his efforts to forge, is in the canyon. And in the deep and dark canyon, an extremely strange and cold atmosphere was constantly exuding. I am afraid that what is hidden there is exactly the method that the two great emperors want to use against Tianyun Palace. But even so, Nai Chen couldn't help but smile when he looked at Chu Qingyu, who was Ling Ran's self-importance and inadvertently exuding a cold power to the surroundings, as well as her pretty and serious face. No matter what strange existence he was facing, at this moment, he felt as if he was full of confidence. "Put aside the matter of teaching your wife how to play the flute. First prepare for the challenge and give these two emperors who are looking for death a good beating." Nai Chen smiled. "Well, I will prove to you later that it is just a flute. It is absolutely easy for me to learn it." Chu Qingyu hummed at Nai Chen with a hint of embarrassment. But soon, it regained its cold and formidable majesty. "Tianyun Palace, all disciples and monks obey my orders. From now on, Tianyun Palace is on alert, ready to fight at any time." As Chu Qingyu's cold voice spread across the top of Tianyun Palace, 4 rays of light rose into the sky. The entire Tianyun Palace was instantly boiling. This moment is finally here. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 226. As early as 100 years ago, when the 3 emperors besieged Tianyun Palace and injured Empress Qingyu, this grudge had already been formed. Whether it was the disciples who joined Tianyun Palace after the war or the people who were already in Tianyun Palace during the war. At this moment, everyone was overwhelmed. In their hearts, Empress Qingyu was the supreme, untouchable and cold existence. But she was also the backbone of Tianyun Palace, and the object of all their loyalty. No one would allow the Empress to be hurt. Those who had hurt the Empress must be returned everything, even if they were torn to pieces. Even if it was any force, when they knew that they might be facing 2 great emperors who would come here in person, they would probably be shocked. But Tianyun Palace is completely different now. Completely different from the silent Tianyun Palace in the past. The entire mountaintop and all places were filled with boiling sounds at the same time. Elders, disciples, soldiers guarding Tianyun Hall, and even the holy envoy who had been in seclusion for many years, all walked out of the hall with high morale. Not only do we have the Empress, but now we also have Senior Brother Nai. That's right, in addition to the Supreme Elders and the holy envoy, Senior Brother Nai also has the strength of the sea-breaking realm. More importantly, the thunder method used by Senior Brother Nai can enhance everyone's strength. Even if we face 2 emperors, I don't believe we will lose this battle. Tianyun Hall must win. For the Empress, Emperor Fiyu, Emperor Yushin, Don't even think about escaping. On the top of the mountain, high-spirited shouts echoed one after another. At this moment, they have waited too long. Even if the opponent is an emperor, the revenge of the empress must be avenged. The momentum of unity permeated the high mountain of Tianyun Hall, and 4 pillars of light that shot up into the sky seemed to firmly guard Tianyun Hall. The majestic momentum continued to spread around. Looking at the 4 beams of light rising in the sky in the distance, countless people stared at the sky and couldn't help but open their eyes wide. This aura, is Tianyun Palace really planning to start a war? Although Emperor Lei Yan is dead, the power of Lei Yan Valley has not been completely destroyed. This battle will represent a war between 4 emperors. 4 emperors. How will such a terrifying war evolve? At this moment, no one can remain calm. Even in the entire Lanchuan continent, there may be only a dozen emperors. And today, there may be a war between the forces led by 3 emperors and 4 emperors. Each emperor is enough to destroy cities and mountains, and even affect the power of heaven and earth. No one can imagine what the scene will be like when the war starts. More importantly, no matter how powerful Empress Qingyu is, she will never be able to gain the upper hand when facing 2 emperors at the same time. Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin have been planning for a long time, and they will definitely not give up this time. It is very likely that they have found a way to deal with Tianyun Palace. This time, the situation is obviously very unfavorable for Empress Qingyu. Compared with the violent and murderous Emperor Fiyu and the scheming Emperor Yushin, most people hope that Empress Qingyu can win. However, they can clearly feel that the situation is not optimistic this time. 4 beams of light shot up into the sky, making Tianyun Palace look extremely majestic. However, the dark clouds in the sky slowly condensed, like a large army approaching, making the atmosphere extremely depressing. Tianyun Palace. Nai Chen sat quietly in the room. The entire Tianyun Palace has completely entered a state of being ready to fight at any time. All major formations are activated, and everyone is full of fighting spirit. Not only that, the forces of the 12 Xingluo palaces are also constantly pouring in. Each of the 12 holy envoys has the strength of the Bahai realm. In addition, the monks they led were like the moon surrounded by stars. It was so majestic and awe-inspiring. Such a foundation was the real strength of Tianyun Palace. The 12 Xingluo palaces supported Tianyun Palace, and in the spotlight, the cold and majestic existence sitting on the throne was the Qingyu Empress, Chu Qingyu. At this moment, the whole world was shocked. This was the power of Tianyun Palace, a huge existence that was enough to make any force fear. And no matter when, the Qingyu Empress sitting on the throne would always be looked up to. Her majestic imperial power could not be violated in any way. But he completely ignored what was happening outside the room. In the secluded room, Nai Chen closed his eyes lightly and put all his spiritual consciousness into his body. Checking the physical condition. Host, Nai Chen. Constitution, Xiangu Saint Body, Enlightenment True Body. Strength, Mid-Sea Realm. Remaining skill points, 120. Number of white feather Dharma phases available, 2. Usable skills, triple attack *1. Degree of refining of the heavenly spirit jade flame in the host, 1/7. Feeling the strong aura in his abdomen that seemed to be burning, Nai Chen could clearly feel that if he could be born, the power of the heavenly spirit jade flame would far exceed anyone's imagination. The inheritance from the ancient alchemy for who knows how many years is indeed mysterious and unpredictable. Perhaps it can really be like the system said that the world can be used as a furnace. However, it is extremely difficult to completely refine and devour it. Even with the Xiangu Saint Body, Nai Chen was completely unable to digest the heavenly spirit jade flame. Now that the war is imminent, I can only devour it bit by bit. Looking at the dark clouds outside the window, Nai Chen closed his eyes again, and the majestic spiritual power swept out from his body and continued to flow into his abdomen. In Nai-Chen's abdomen, there was only a little flame of the heavenly spirit jade flame. But it was that tiny flame, like a grain of rice, that seemed to contain endless power. Trying to devour the heavenly spirit jade flame. Devouring the heavenly spirit jade flame. The two forces kept colliding, and even if they touched the spiritual power of the heavenly spirit jade flame, they would be completely annihilated in an instant. However, Nai-Chen controlled the spiritual energy like a vast ocean and rushed towards it one after another. The sky became darker and darker. Except for the light column that seemed to connect the heaven and the earth, the heavy clouds almost completely covered all the light. And as the sky gradually changed, the atmosphere gradually became a little solemn. They are coming. At this moment, someone suddenly noticed. On the other side of the clouds, a huge army was marching on the dark clouds, slowly heading towards the direction of the Tianyun Palace. The dark clouds were divided into three large pieces. One piece was led by Emperor Fiyu. One piece was led by Emperor Yushan. The other piece was the remnant of the Laiyan Valley. The forces commanded by the three emperors gathered here today. Boom! A thunderbolt seemed to tear a crack in the sky. All the people in the Tianyun Palace looked into the distance solemnly, ready for battle. This moment finally came. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 227. There is a magic that can completely conceal the breath above the clouds. Looking at the three huge dark clouds floating over, Elder Wang frowned slightly. Emperor Yushan is indeed full of tricks. If Nai-Chen hadn't discovered this and passed the information back to Tianyun Palace first, I'm afraid they would suddenly attack Tianyun Palace and catch it off guard. Two emperors attacked at the same time and wanted to attack. How shameless! Hearing what Elder Wang said, the disciples' disgust for Fiyu and Emperor Yushan deepened. A steady stream of Tianyun Palace monks gathered in front of the holy elephant of the Empress. Even in the face of the army's pressure, they were still full of fighting spirit and ready to fight. At this moment, the clouds were already floating over. Looking down at the Tianyun Palace under his feet in the sky, Emperor Fiyu's expression was full of arrogance. Humph, I didn't expect that you cowardly youngsters would actually take precautions in advance. Well, in that case, I will personally end your lives. Today is the day when the Tianyun Palace will be destroyed. No one, don't even think about escaping from my hands. Empress King Yu, it's time to settle the account from 100 years ago. Emperor Fiyu looked down coldly, but was embarrassed to find that there was no figure of Chu Qingyu below. Where is Empress Qingyu? Instantly, Emperor Fiyu showed a trace of anger. He led hundreds of thousands of cultivators and the power of 3 emperors, but he didn't even have the qualifications to be valued by Chu Qingyu. Let the Empress come out to answer you in person, are you worthy? Shen Kongshuang held the blade in his hand and looked coldly into the sky. The sharp blade flashed with cold light, as if it could pierce through everything in the world. The army was pressing in the sky, and there were cultivators on the dark clouds that were far more than 6 or 7 times the power of Tianyun Palace. Moreover, everyone was full of killing intent, and it was obvious that they were not friendly. But facing them, the people in Tianyun Palace seemed to have no fear at all. It's like this again, it's like this again. She has always been like this, and she doesn't take anyone seriously. At this moment, Emperor Fiyu was completely enraged. Over the years, he has been trying every means to avenge the past. 100 years have passed, and he has spent countless efforts. Now he has led an overwhelming army to cover the entire Tianyun Palace. But even so, he is not even qualified to be looked at by Chu Qingyu. Even after 100 years, Chu Qingyu's arrogance has never dissipated, and it is even worse than before. Empress Qingyu, I want you to die. Today, not only you, but the entire Tianyuan Palace, no one will survive. I will turn the entire Tianyuan Palace into a sea of blood. A hysterical roar came out, and 5 wings appeared behind Emperor Fiyu, with blood in his eyes, as if he had completely fallen into madness. After waiting for so long, he finally waited until today. He must dye the entire Tianyuan Palace red with blood. Everyone listen to my command, rush to Tianyuan Palace, kill everyone, and leave no one alive. Emperor Fiyu shouted loudly. At the same time, nearly tens of thousands of cultivators from the Fiyu Holy Land behind him flew down from the clouds at the same time, with magic weapons in their hands flashing and cold murderous intent surging down. Are you not going to do it yet? Emperor Fiyu glared at Emperor Yushin behind him. Don't worry, let the cultivators of Laiyan Valley help you fight. Before the rabbit dies, it will fight the eagle desperately. I will completely suppress all possible resistance of Empress Qingyu here. From today on, there will be no Empress Qingyu in the world, and there will be no Tianyuan Palace anymore. Emperor Yushin had a sneer on his lips. Compared to Emperor Fiyu, who seemed to be in a rage all the time, his aura made people feel even colder. Humph, no matter what, Empress Qingyu must die here today. Many cultivators from the Thunder Flame Valley followed closely, swarming towards the Sky Cloud Palace like a tide. The dark clouds completely blocked the sky, and Emperor Yushin led his men to stand on the clouds. It was like a hunter waiting for an opportunity, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Many cultivators from Fiyu Holy Land and the Thunder Flame Valley had already rushed down from the clouds. Amid the sound of bells and drums, shouts of killing resounded through the world. The majestic killing intent filled the sky above the Sky Cloud Palace. The number of these cultivators swarming in has reached twice that of the Sky Cloud Palace. It was overwhelming and sweeping. More importantly, everyone in the Sky Cloud Palace saw it clearly. These cultivators exuded a strange aura, their eyes were filled with blood-colored lines, and blood was faintly flowing from the corners of their eyes. Their strength far exceeded their original strength, but their aura was fishy and strange, which made people feel cold. Kill. In this war, there is only victory, no failure. A disciple shouted loudly, holding a long sword, and took the lead without hesitation, killing forward. Everyone in Tianyuan Hall was deeply inspired. The Empress has protected Tianyuan Hall for many years, and she fought 3 emperors alone to save Tianyuan Hall in the war 100 years ago. If it can be exchanged for victory, even if it means risking one's life, one should not hesitate. Tianyuan Hall, only live towards death. Even when facing those monks with strange auras, everyone in Tianyuan Hall did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Amid the shouts, they rushed forward. The forces of both sides have been completely caught in a melee. Whether in terms of the number of people or the suppressing effect of the strange aura, Tianyuan Hall is obviously at a disadvantage. But the people in Tianyuan Palace were full of fighting spirit, as if they had no fear at all. The shouts were overwhelming, and the light of countless magic weapons illuminated the sky above Tianyuan Palace as if it were daytime. The spiritual power spread out in all directions, and the aftermath of the collision was like a big wave hitting all directions. The entire Tianyuan Palace was completely caught in the battle. The roars were louder than the roars, and the mighty breath kept drifting. The swords flashed, the magic weapons collided, blood flowed, and the killing intent continued to spread. I don't know how many people turned into dry bones, and I don't know how many people killed the enemy under their feet. You little kid dare to be presumptuous in front of me. The Emperor Fiyu opened his eyes wide and stepped forward, wanting to crush the disciples of Tianyuan Palace under his feet with the power of the Emperor. However, several figures appeared in front of him at the same time, completely surrounding him. The 12 Xingluo palaces and the 12 holy envoys, each of them has the strength of the Bahai realm. Under the leadership of Shen Kongshuang, the 12 holy envoys actually surrounded Emperor Fiyu. 12 daggers floated in the air and became the foundation of the formation. The huge spiritual power trapped Emperor Fiyu in the formation condensed by the daggers, making him unable to move forward, and stopping the footsteps of a great emperor here. It's not time yet. Looking at the situation that seemed to be in a stalemate under his feet, Emperor Yushin, who was in the air and had a full view of all this, smiled slightly, with a hint of cold smile on the corner of his mouth. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 228. Boom. Waves of violent aftermath spread around the Tianyun Palace. Looking up at the sky, countless people showed fear on their faces. This war has finally begun. The war between the Tianyun Palace and the two emperors was so magnificent that it made people fear. No one knew who would win this war, but it was very clear that the situation would become more and more tragic. This battle is probably enough to go down in history. At this moment, the blood light on the 5 wings of Emperor Fiyu was strong, and a hint of murderous intent appeared on his whole body. Besieged by the 12 saints, Emperor Fiyu was completely furious. The 5 blood wings flapped suddenly, sweeping up the smelly wind. The emperor's power shook in all directions. As if there were endless ghosts crying, in the strange wind, Emperor Fiyu took a step forward. The might of the emperor was so great that the formation set up by the 12 saints was crushed by one step. Not good. Shen Kongshuang's eyes condensed slightly, and she quickly held the night blade to block the way of Emperor Fiyu. Even though she was proficient in assassination and not direct combat, Shen Kongshuang would stop him even if she risked her life. You are just a junior in the Bahai realm. Who gave you the courage to stop me? Emperor Fiyu was furious, and a huge murderous intent emerged. The emperor was already an existence that had broken free from the shackles of heaven and earth. Even though Shen Kongshuang's strength far exceeded that of ordinary Bahai realm cultivators, she was completely unable to bear the overwhelming majesty. Even the spiritual weapon night blade in her hand trembled slightly under this mighty might. Since you don't retreat, die here for me. Emperor Fiyu's eyes were wide open, and the blood in his palm spread to the surroundings like the lines of flower stamens. He clenched his 5 fingers towards Shen Kongshuang, and the endless killing intent pressed down like a tidal wave. The huge aura of the emperor seemed to completely devour Shen Kongshuang. But at this moment, I am a person of Tianyun Palace, how can you move me just because you want to? A cold voice suddenly came. I saw the sky-high sword energy suddenly rising from Tianyun Palace, and the emerald sword energy seemed to be mixed with endless majestic and cold meaning. Even the space was completely twisted and torn apart by the sword energy, and the whistling wind was cut off by a sword. And this sword also cut through the blood color that permeated Shen Kongshuang. Boom! The green light cut through, and everything in front of him returned to nothingness. Shen Kongshuang retreated and stood respectfully behind Chu Qingyu. And everyone saw it clearly. A white dress swayed in the wind, and the white dress wrapped the beautiful figure in the fluttering. It was like a blooming lotus, beautiful beyond words. With a graceful figure holding a green bamboo sword, she walks gracefully, as if she is in an empty space. Walking with a sword in hand, her flawless and beautiful figure is like a fairy descending from the sky to the earth, without any flaws. Cold and proud, like a lotus floating in a lotus pond. Even though she is extremely beautiful, she exudes a majesty that no one dares to approach or blaspheme. Mighty imperial power, flawless and beautiful. The existence of Empress Qingyu is really like the most perfect masterpiece in the world. Even though they are slightly shocked by this beauty, no one dares to have the idea of blasphemy. This is Empress Qingyu, an existence that the world can only look up to and fear. At this moment, not only the people in Tianyun Palace, but even the cultivators under the 3 emperors were all shocked by the scene before their eyes. It's you again. Unlike 100 years ago, Empress Qingyu, today, don't think you can still save your life. Emperor Fiyu roared, and murderous intent continued to permeate his body. 100 years have passed, And you still haven't learned your lesson. You will never get rid of the erosion of violence. Chu Qingyu snorted coldly, as if she didn't take Emperor Feiyu seriously at all. You must die. Being despised again, Emperor Feiyu couldn't stand it anymore. As if crazy, 5 wings rose up to the sky, and under the background of blood-colored feathers, he rushed towards Chu Qingyu regardless of everything. The palm turned into a claw, completely engulfed by blood, as if he wanted to tear her into pieces. Dong! Just at this moment, above the horizon, endless brilliant light completely illuminated half of the sky. That is, the Emperor Bell. Countless people looked up at the sky, feeling dreadful. Even in this doomsday-like scene covered by dark clouds, the existence of the Emperor Bell seemed to be able to break through all the fog and exude a mighty power. With just the first ring of the Emperor Bell, the feathers in the sky transformed by Emperor Feiyu disappeared in an instant. Dong! When the second Emperor Bell rang, Emperor Feiyu's figure suddenly stagnated, as if struck by lightning, and stagnated in place. With the majestic sound spreading to the surroundings. Looking up at the sky, everyone was in awe. As a great emperor, Emperor Feiyu was suppressed so easily. How strong is Empress Qingyu? The holy golden light splashed down, like a cage, unbreakable. Being suppressed in it, Emperor Feiyu trembled slightly, as if he was under endless pressure. Do you think that after 100 years, I have only this means to attack Tianyun Palace again? Chu Qingyu, you underestimate everything I have done. But at this moment, Emperor Feiyu was under endless pressure and suddenly raised his head. Under the strong pressure, scars were cut on his body. But with scars on his body, the blood-colored aura on Emperor Feiyu became more and more intense. That weird feeling was constantly bursting out. Boom! In a canyon far away, endless blood suddenly broke out, and the howling bloody wind rushed straight into the sky. It seemed that there were countless ghosts wailing in it, miserable. And suddenly, as if there was a sense, the aura on Emperor Feiyu suddenly changed. The wings that were originally filled with blood turned red, and the eyes were completely filled with scarlet color. Empress Qingyu, if this is the case, can you still stop me? Emperor Feiyu's hands have turned into scarlet claws. When the claws grabbed down, the light of the Emperor Bell trapped by it was completely shattered like glass. The power of the Emperor suddenly rose, but in that breath, there was an endless smell of stench. Looking at this scene, Chu Qingyu frowned slightly and became completely serious. She had expected it, and sure enough, this moment came. Haha, it's time to start. At the same time, Emperor Yushin above the clouds raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth. Like a mantis catching a cicada, the oriole is behind, and at this moment, he finally waited. Everyone, listen to my call, kill to Tianyun Palace, wipe out everyone, and completely flatten Tianyun Palace. The order of Emperor Yushin sounded at this time. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 229. As the voice of Emperor Yushin appeared, the black monks surged down from the clouds. Not only that, the bloody aura that enveloped everyone became more and more intense. A strange feeling permeated almost all the monks under the 3 great emperors. Their eyes were covered with the same blood streaks as those of Emperor Feiyu. That's the dragon blood formation. Suddenly, the strength of the monks who attacked Tianyun Temple increased dramatically. With the emperor's order, the monks on the clouds joined the battlefield, causing the situation to take a turn for the worse. Even if the people in Tianyun Palace were not afraid of life and death and tried their best to resist, they would still be completely unable to face 6 or 7 times more opponents at the same time, whose strength had suddenly and strangely increased for some unknown reason. Seeing that the disciples of Tianyun Palace began to retreat steadily, there was no way to resist head-on. At this moment, Emperor Feiyu, who had turned scarlet all over, had obviously greatly improved his strength. The imperial bell rang, and among the majestic bells, although Emperor Fiyu was obviously at a disadvantage, Chu Qingyu was unable to completely defeat him. Boom! A green sword energy cut through the sky, which seemed to contain the endless power of the Emperor, and was awe-inspiring. As expected of Empress Qingyu, if this sword had been used by me in the past, I would have been cut into 2 pieces. Unfortunately, that's all you can do. Emperor Fiyu showed a hint of hysterical smile, and the whistling blood suddenly emerged. At the same time, a figure suddenly approached. The endless spiritual power turned into a mountain to suppress it. The huge mountain seemed to be able to crush the entire heavenly temple to pieces. Oops! The fierce hurricane swept across, and watched as a huge shadow shrouded it, almost swallowing the entire mountain top. The disciples of Tianyun Palace could not hide their fear, and their faces looked a little pale. Chu Qingyu took action at this time. Dong! The sound of the 3rd imperial bell rang. Chu Qingyu's body was covered with bright golden light. Ling Ran's imperial power was endless. The delicate jade hand pointed into the air, the palm of the hand facing the mountain. Boom! The suppressed tens of thousands of years ago, the mountain suddenly stopped, and this endless and huge virtual image was blocked by her single-handedly. As expected of an empress. All the disciples were excited and amazed by such a powerful strength. But before their surprise could dissipate, Emperor Fiyu seized the opportunity and attacked Chu Qingyu fiercely. His arm no longer resembled a human hand, but was still twisted and transformed into a huge claw as high as half a man. The muscles on it are ligated, twisted, and hideous, which is disgusting. Countless feathers suddenly covered it, turning into a bloody long blade, which was engraved with various weird lines. Shocked to death. Emperor Fiyu had a ferocious look, and his right arm seemed to be condensed with thousands of formations. It was strange, cold, and unpredictable, and he suddenly stabbed towards Chu Qingyu's delicate body. A dark wind lingered above it, and there seemed to be endless cries and howls of resentful ghosts reverberating. The aura exuded even far exceeded Emperor Fiyu's own strength. Chu Qingyu's eyes were cold. She held a bamboo sword in her free left hand and slashed it down with one stroke. A seemingly random sword strike created a huge wave, knocking Fiyu Emperor back hundreds of meters. Even when facing 2 great emperors and the strange dragon blood formation at the same time, the Empress was still not at a disadvantage in the slightest. However, the situation is not as optimistic as it seems. Emperor Yushin in the sky summoned endless mountains and rivers with mountain and river pictures one after another, and suppressed them with a huge force. Countless bloody feathers were distributed in the sky above Tianyun Palace, and Emperor Fiyu was waiting for an opportunity like a bloodthirsty cheetah. Even though she was not defeated, Chu Qingyu was completely trapped by the 2 of them and could not escape at all. But at this moment, facing a force that far exceeded several times, Tianyun Palace had begun to lose continuously. Empress Qingyu, do you still think you can escape? Emperor Fiyu still had a cruel smile. In the sky, the imperial bell rang, blood filled the air, and the mountains and rivers in the mountain and river map enveloped the heaven and earth. Waves of violent ripples spread in all directions. The war between the 3 emperors was really terrifying. Looking up at the sky, everyone can feel the terrifying sense of oppression even from a very far distance. It is so majestic that it seems to be able to destroy the heaven and the earth. This is a war between great emperors. Even monks who have practiced for thousands of years can only look up in awe. However, even though she was undefeated against 2 great emperors at the same time, Chu Qingyu's eyebrows frowned slightly. She could clearly feel that the real purpose of the 2 was not to completely defeat her, but to hold her back first. At this moment, the disciples of Tianyun Palace who had been retreating suddenly discovered. Among the monks who were killing Tianyun Palace, some were suddenly completely enveloped in scarlet blood. Immediately afterwards, their bodies quickly twisted and deformed, and their flesh and bones completely changed. Fangs and claws grew, and the body continued to expand and split with its twisted flesh, turning into a terrifying behemoth. Those monks had long since lost any humanity, and their huge bodies were covered with bloody tumors and twisted ferociously. The bloody mouth full of fangs constantly exudes a cold and strange stench. What is that? Even the disciples of Tianyun Palace who were not weak in strength looked at the scene in front of them in astonishment. The huge beasts exuded an extremely terrifying aura, and their strength was probably far beyond anyone's imagination. At this time, countless bodies that had been transformed into strange beasts were already rushing towards Tianyun Hall. Their bodies were invulnerable to swords and guns, and their strength was enough. No matter what, it seemed that they could not stop their steps at all. In just an instant, the guards of Tianyun Hall had been defeated. Even if they tried their best and even risked their lives to stop them, countless disciples were trampled or torn to pieces and died tragically in the stomachs of those beasts. The situation took a sharp turn for the worse. Even with the supreme elders and holy envoys, facing the power of the three emperors and those terrifying and strange beasts at the same time, they were simply overwhelmed. At this moment, the empress was fighting against Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushin at the same time, and she could no longer escape. Roaring and wailing, the entire Tianyun Hall was filled with blood, and miserable scenes occurred one after another. The stalemate has been completely broken. If this continues, I'm afraid that Tianyun Palace will really be unable to defend. I'm sorry to the Empress. The breath of despair inadvertently spread, and the disciples felt a dull pain in their hearts as they looked at the approaching beast. They swore to be loyal to the Empress, and were even willing to devote all their strength, but they never thought that their strength was so small. Who can save this situation? Some female disciples couldn't help sobbing, and their bodies trembled slightly. But at this moment of despair, suddenly, a green flame shot up into the sky from the back mountain. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mozuzi. Chapter 230. The bloody ferocious beast twisted its strange body and rushed towards the disciples of Tianyun Hall. The pervasive blood color made people feel chilly, and before their eyes, the crowd was about to be completely overwhelmed by this giant beast. The green flame soaring into the sky attracted everyone's attention in an instant. What's that? Emperor Fiyu suddenly realized something was wrong. But even though Chu Qingyu was trapped, he and Emperor Yushin were unable to escape. At this moment, in the rising flames, Nai Chen's figure suddenly appeared. Everyone could clearly see that there was a frightening golden light shining in Nai Chen's eyes. The green flame swirling around his body seemed to contain infinite terrifying power. The green fire drifted down, and anyone who touched it, whether it was the monks attacking Tianyun Palace or the terrifying beasts strengthened by the dragon blood formation, would be burned to ashes in an instant. The seemingly light flame seemed to contain an endless terrifying aura. You alone, dare to attack Tianyun Palace. Nai Chen's figure appeared above the disciples of Tianyun Hall. Lightning flashed across the sky, and the endless thunder split into tens of millions, falling on the disciples in Tianyun Hall. This is exactly the thousands of thunders differentiated by the path of Bodhi leaf enlightenment. Bathed in the thunder light, the eyes of the disciples in Tianyun Palace flickered, and they were all extremely happy. In this thunder, everyone's strength has been greatly improved. It is as if he is wearing tough armor and is unbreakable. Senior brother Nai is finally here. Senior brother Nai. Exclamations rang out one after another, and Tianyun Palace, which had been in a state of decline, completely reversed. The morale of the disciples was greatly boosted, and their strength was greatly improved. Do you think you alone can turn the situation around? The monks under Emperor Fiyu were furious, shouting and charging forward. Not only that, more people's bodies twisted, their bones and flesh shattered, and they turned into more and more giant monsters. The rain was blowing in the strong wind and the sky was filled with dark clouds. Below, countless monks wearing armor and holding magic weapons rushed towards them, roaring with anger, their voices shaking the sky and the earth. There were even more exotic beasts coming in a steady stream, making menacing roars from their mouths. But facing this horrifying scene, Nai Chen just hung in the air and turned a blind eye. The army is coming like a tide, and even if the disciples of Tianyun Palace are bathed in thunder, they may not be able to resist it. But at this moment, as Nai Chen waved his palm, a golden Dharma image suddenly emerged from the sky. Thousands of miles of haze, the sky is gloomy. But in this dark wind howling, it seems like a doomsday scene. The mammoth golden giant seems to be a god descended from the world, inspiring endless awe. The monks looked up at the sky, their pupils shrinking sharply, and they were extremely horrified. When the giant golden palm was photographed, it seemed as if it could destroy the world. The hurricane swept across, and the strong wind pressure even swept up rocks. Under it, even those bloody beasts that seemed to have lost their minds long ago were trembling, as if they felt the fear coming from the soul. Nai Chen has not reached the waiting realm, but his terrifying strength has already exceeded anyone's knowledge. Boom! With one palm strike, the rocks shattered, the heaven and earth shook, and the entire Tianyun Palace mountain seemed to be trembling violently. Under the golden palm print, huge pits were dented, and the cracks spread for unknown distances. Endless violent winds swept between heaven and earth, as if the end of the world was coming. The smoke and dust dispersed in all directions, and under the palm of the golden giant, the monks of Fiyu Holy Land were killed and wounded numerous times, and almost all of them were turned into pulp. Looking at this horrific scene, everyone's breath froze slightly and they felt inexplicable fear. They had thought that Empress Qingyu was the only one in Tianyun Palace who could not handle it, but they never thought that Nai Chen would appear at this time. Moreover, Nai Chen's strength would be so terrifying. Nai Chen! How dare you! Unable to escape from Chu Qingyu's hands, Emperor Fiyu's eyes were scarlet and furious. Time and time again, his plans were broken by Nai Chen. And when attacking Tianyun Palace, this kid actually stood up again. If Chu Qingyu hadn't blocked him, he would have tried his best to tear Nai Chen into pieces. Emperor Fiyu, do you think you can come to Tianyun Palace whenever you want and leave whenever you want? Nai Chen looked at Emperor Fiyu coldly. What did you say? Having never been provoked like this before, Emperor Fiyu's eyes widened in anger. Even though Nai Chen's action temporarily prevented the destruction of Tianyun Palace. But now Empress Qingyu is trapped. She has a force several times greater than that of Tianyun Palace, and with the blessing of the dragon blood formation, she is still completely at the upper hand. Where does this kid get his confidence from? Humph, who gave you the courage? Do you think you can change any situation by yourself? Wait, that's it? Emperor Fiyu was just halfway through his words when his eyes suddenly looked into the distance in astonishment. On the horizon, golden light shone for half the sky. A refreshing fragrance floated in the air, and female disciples as beautiful as flowers were seen arranged in a square array, floating in from a distance. Surrounded by female disciples, the golden chariot was decorated with thousands of flowers, exuding bright light. Like the cry of a divine phoenix, the golden chariot clustered among the female disciples is majestic and sacred, as if it is floating with the sound of Sanskrit. The jade-like hand lifted the gauze curtain, and a graceful figure floated out of it. The golden hair fluttered in the air, and the graceful figure was bathed in golden light and shone like a god, exuding a sense of holy beauty that could not be violated. I heard that Tianyun Palace was in danger, and I came here from the holy land of flowers to help. The Saint of Flowers smiled, and her smile was a little tender and charming. Few people could notice that her eyes, like water and affection, looked through the crowd and looked at Nai Chen in the distance. The corners of her mouth raised slightly, revealing a very charming smile, and she deliberately threw a wink at Nai Chen. Saint of Flowers, you are here. Emperor Fiyu was obviously startled. As a powerful emperor, Saint of Flowers is definitely not inferior to any emperor. Moreover, the 7 love flowers in the Holy Land of Flowers have a strange method from ancient times, which is even more strange. It's not just me. Looking back at Emperor Fiyu, Saint Fanhua's gentle eyes were filled with a hint of awe. What did you say? Emperor Fiyu looked away suddenly. And there, the vast army and forces were constantly pouring in from the horizon. All alchemists in Lanchuan continent, come to help our Dandao leader Nai Chen in the Battle of Tianyun Palace. Eastern Saint Emperor Duan Muhong is here to repay Nai Chen for saving his life. Qingxia Palace. Yongsuan Gate. Dushan Du. Our sects are blessed by Tianyun Palace and come here to help Tianyun Palace. Shock, the love letter was sent to the Empress by mistake. Author, Mo Zuzi. Chapter 231. The Holy Emperor of the East, Duan Muhong. Although Duan Muhong is not a great emperor, he is over 1,000 years old. He has a superb silver spear. He looks like a 20-year-old young man, and his physique is unparalleled. The entire Duan Mu family uses spears as weapons. Although their realm is not high, their combat power is definitely not weak. In the past, no force dared to provoke him easily. Why did Duan Muhong suddenly appear to help Nai Chen? When did Nai Chen save him? Emperor Fiyu opened his eyes wide. If it was just Duan Muhong, he would not be afraid at all. But in the distant sky, countless Duan Mu family monks wearing armor and holding spears followed Duan Muhong. Almost all of the Duan Mu family have arrived at Tianyun Palace at this moment. Not only that, there is also the Saint of Flowers, the alchemist with a respected status in Lanchuan continent, and those major sects. Why did these people appear here at the same time? Guard the Tianyun Palace, charge. The mighty monks have already flown down from the sky, charging towards the forces of the 3 emperors without fear. This battle is no longer a battle of the Tianyun Palace alone. Moreover, the situation has completely reversed. The forces of the 3 emperors, who originally relied on the strange beasts and strange formations to gain an advantage, are losing ground. 100 years ago, you escaped with your lives but didn't know how to cherish them. In this case, I'll trouble you to stay here. The fragrant breath floated in the air, and millions of petals floated by. The Saint of Flowers smiled, and her golden hair fluttered in the wind. However, although her pretty face was beautiful, it exuded a terrifying chill. Duan Mu Yang also held a spear and blocked the retreat in the north. On one side was the Queen Qingyu, on the other side was the Saint of Flowers, and on the other side was Duan Mu Yang blocking the way. The expressions of Emperor Fiyu and Emperor Yushan changed slightly at the same time. 2 great emperors and a Dongji Saint Emperor at the peak of the sea-breaking realm. Such a battle may not be found in the entire Lanchuan continent. The light of the Tianyun Palace below was flashing, and the sound of the collision of magic weapons was heard one after another. The forces of all parties have been caught in a melee. And the situation of the war was obviously constantly leaning towards the Tianyun Palace. Under the siege of many forces, even the many cultivators under the seats of Emperor Fiyu, Emperor Yushan, and Emperor Laiyan could not resist and began to show a trend of decadent retreat. Qingyu, I came in time, right? Saint Fanhua smiled and approached Chu Qingyu. Humph, this time it's just your credit. Chu Qingyu responded coldly. He, Qingyu, it's rare for you to praise me. Saint Fanhua smiled warmly and seemed very excited. However, if you dare to bully Qingyu and him, some people must pay a price. In just a moment, the light in Saint Fanhua's beautiful eyes turned cold. Him. Emperor Yushan was slightly stunned. At this moment, 3 auras emerged one after another. Empress Qingyu, Saintess Fanhua, Duan Muhong. 2 emperors, 1 Saint Emperor, 3 extremely powerful auras swept across, and their majestic momentum was incomparable. The way out has been completely blocked, and the huge emperor bell hangs high in the sky, faintly emitting a majestic majesty. Even if the two of them face Chu Qingyu at the same time, they still can't defeat her. The scene in front of them is no longer something they can deal with. Ha 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 ha, is this Empress Qingyu? I didn't expect that. It's not just you, but also a weird Nai Chen. He is actually the leader of the world's alchemists, and he has saved Duan Muhang's life. But what can I do? Since they dare to come, it's not just Tianyun Palace, everyone will die here. What do you think I've been doing for these 100 years? With the existence of him, you all will die. Suddenly, Emperor Feiyu burst into hysterical laughter. What do you mean? Chu Qingyu frowned slightly, and a hint of coldness appeared on her cold face. What? Do you remember what is above the emperor? Emperor Feiyu's eyes were bloodshot, and he suddenly laughed miserably. At the same time, a fierce thunder suddenly sounded from the sky. The clouds in the sky continued to condense and sweep, and above the Tianyun Palace, there were extremely tall clouds. And the clouds were stained with a strong blood color. Thunder roared in the sky, and the wind swept endlessly. Strange visions continued, as if the end of the world was extremely strange. Looking at the sky, everyone felt a chill in their hearts inexplicably. It seemed that some terrifying existence was about to come. The air was filled with an increasingly strong blood-colored atmosphere, and strange and bizarre words began to spread over the clouds. Please show up, it's time for you to show up. Emperor Feiyu opened his arms and looked at the sky frantically, his laughter became more and more weird and miserable. Boom! Suddenly, countless bloods gathered in the air, and the strong momentum swept the sky. The extremely cold breath made many people pale, and they felt that their souls seemed to be trembling slightly. They didn't know what Emperor Feiyu was doing, but they could clearly feel that an extremely terrifying breath seemed to be brewing. No wonder they put all their efforts into casting the dragon blood array. Could it be that their intention was? Chu Qingyu's expression changed slightly, and her cheeks, which were always cold, were slightly paler than ever before. At the same time, the flesh and blood of Emperor Feiyu was torn to pieces in an instant in the hurricane. The body of a great emperor was torn apart by the hurricane. But even though his body was twisted and shattered, his smile became more and more hideous and weird. All the flesh and blood were completely torn apart, and the broken body of Emperor Feiyu was sucked away by the center of the cloud. Even the blood-covered wings were swept in. Boom! The trembling sound that resounded through the world spread over a radius of thousands of miles, almost spreading across the entire Lanchuan continent. Countless blood rain fell from the sky. In the gloomy wind, it seemed that there were evil spirits wailing and crying. And suddenly, all the strange phenomena suddenly calmed down. When they looked up again, everyone clearly saw that there was a blood-colored body floating in the sky. The body was covered with strange black lines, and the whole body was completely blood-colored. And behind him, the wings of Emperor Feiyu were flapping. The wings actually reached 6 wings. There was no face, no breath, the blood-colored figure in the sky, only a breath that seemed to contain endless death. And that breath, even the emperors would feel cold because of it. That is. The pretty face of the flower saint changed slightly in an instant. She suddenly recalled this breath. This breath was exactly the Emperor Minqi who failed to break through the Jizhung realm 600 years ago and died tragically under the laws of heaven. Emperor Feiyu actually used his own body and the dragon blood formation as a guide to forcibly revive the dead Emperor Minqi, and refined his body to the half-step Jizhung realm. Suddenly, an incomparable strong momentum burst out from the body of Emperor Minqi. That breath was enough to make the heaven and earth tremble.